Like I've had a look at your website already, but I have never touched a product or looked in depth into it. I know you have this language of things, lot, but I'm not 100% sure what it is exactly. So I'm not too familiar with the product. So that's that would anyways be like an interesting part. But on the MQTT part, sure, completely solid. On the other parts around that, what you have, all of that around that, not 100% sure exactly. And also like the connectivity parts there. They're like probably off camera. I'd have a couple of questions as well, and how you see it in terms of, for example, who you typically see when you compete against somebody. Is it like Litmus or Cybus or something like that? Typically,
it's mostly IVMQ. We encounter them as well a lot on many projects. Litmus as well to a certain extent. We no longer compete on the protocols, for example, because in my view, protocols have become more of a commodity. There are a lot of different options for that now, and for better or worse, with vibe coding, that has even increased even more, because a lot of people are producing their own connectors using Python, for example, and they're vibe coded with all the dangers that carries, but we know it's being done. So we, of course, try to provide a safe way, manually programmed path to implementing that. It's a matter of cybersecurity when you work in industry, but yeah, those are more of a commodity than anything else. I think the market has moved past that layer.
Still, it's often like the first step essentially, and then how you bring it all together. In the end, it's really, you have the connectivity, then you have the secure and reliable data transport. I mean, that's exactly where MQTT comes into place. And then like what everybody's talking about, but that's exactly the problem. Always the standardization, the normalization, enforcing that it's actually that the producers of the data can be sure, or rather the consumers can be sure that the producers actually send the right data in the right fashion, so that you can really have this decoupling and still be sure that everything's neatly working together. And then who owns what. And for example, if you say that you're competing often with HiveMQ, because like frankly, I know you like basically from the internet, having been on the website and came somewhere up, but I think we've never encountered you, for example, in like talking to a prospect or so, or they just didn't talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah, we are just starting to expand our reach as well. We have expanded more on the Asian market and the European market, working with large corporations. We started handling the tens of millions of devices for single clients across geographies. By improving the cloud element, we manage clusters as well, so we are able to scale from 1 to tens of millions. And we are now transitioning more into the American market as well. So we have done that by partnering with global system integrators. So we don't do the integrations ourselves. We make those partnerships in order to be able to have that reach. And then we provide support to the integrators so that they may do their best job. Because our tools started exactly by being on the shop floor. We started as an integration company way back. And from there we developed our own tools, and we came up to develop this product step by step, bit by bit, by knowing the pain points. And that's a bit of the story of how we got there.
Nice. And are you like completely bootstrapped, or do you have VCs in the background?
We currently have investment. We've gathered investment.
Cool. Like recently, or?
We already have initial investors, but recently we did a seed round, a formal seed round, in order to boost this capability of development. And we have a 2.0 version to show for it as well, which was a major update in terms of the functionality. And that has allowed us, no doubt, to implement many of the visions and values that we have. One of the core elements is what you asked, the language of things.
Yeah.
What this is essentially a domain-specific language built inside the broker. That means, besides being a repository of information, the broker becomes a place where information is processed. We are able to define models, which are the schemas for the information. We have actions, which means we can provide functions on every topic, on event, on time. We can do the behavior of the system. We can implement the routes, connect to OT systems, IT systems, and on top of that, it allows us to transform the data for multiple purposes. For clients to save on the data they send to the cloud, because it's pre-processed, so they only send what they need. And this has allowed a lot of clients to save a lot of money. And also to handle more complex use cases. We are able to run not only the language of things, but Python scripts as well inside the broker. This means two things. First, ML. You can run ML, you can send data to the cloud for training. If you have the infrastructure yourself, you can train locally on the broker, and you can do inference as well. And since Coreflux can be installed across devices, either Windows, Linux, ARM, this allows for a lot of leeway on the things that you can do.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, there's a little bit of like a feature overlap, but many things that we also not do there on that end. I would be also quite interesting, like everything like this, the processing part essentially there. It's something where we have something as well where exactly this like data condensing, aggregation is essentially like a major thing for many, and that you can process it a little bit so that it adheres to the schemas afterwards. And it would be quite interesting as well. Did you talk about like Hyphen to Pulse, for example, with Hyphen to?
Yes, we talked about Pulse, especially their recent focus on that, and focusing more on the data side of the elements.
What's your opinion or idea on that?
It goes back to the element that each solution can focus on specific strengths, and still we are able to provide value to the customers. Pulse has likely been a slight pivot of direction on what they were doing, and it represents them going into territory of other companies as well, like iByte, things like that. So this brings the topic of MQTT plus, as Andreas called it. If the true direction for MQTT is to have brokers that are simply data buckets, data repositories, or something more, and if something more, which seems to be the consensus, then what exactly? And how do we safeguard the technology from becoming stale, from becoming obsolete? One of the discussions yesterday was exactly about the standard. Should the changes to MQTT be at the standard level? And if so, do we incur the risk of falling into an OPC UA situation?
I mean, it's
where the unified
way away from that complexity that they are doing there.
Yes, but as we add elements to the specs, to the MQTT spec, we also increase the chance that people will not use those specific elements.
I mean, it's with MQTT5 exactly the case. Like many things are not being used.
Exactly. What we've seen from the market is that clients tend to use some of the features of MQTT5, but never the full implementation. And we now support MQTT5, but most of the implementations still remain at the 3.1 level. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but that is something that we have seen.
Yeah, no, I mean, we see it many times as well, like particularly because we've been in the market for so long with the open source version. I mean, the first version came out in 2009, 2010. Well, Roger also, similar to Andreas, to be honest, did it as a hobby project. So it just threw it out there and then it picked up from there, and then we started to build a company around it like somewhat like 10 years ago or so. And but for that reason, sometimes we are really impressed if somebody comes to us and says, hey, yeah, we've got MQTT running as well on the Mosquito. So okay, look at that in which version it is. Sometimes we know, okay, it's 8 years old. So naturally, nowhere near to MQTT version 5. So that's always quite impressive. But with us in the cases, many times it's just built in already in some edge or field devices essentially. And then it's just there. It's sold, and then it runs wherever it runs for 20 years or so. And they will never ever change anything on that because it's basically like just a hardware piece that's been sold with some software on it to do the job. So from that end, that's always impressive. However, if they build something new,
that's the real issue, especially on this specific phase where technology is evolving so quickly.
Yeah.
It's always relevant to make sure that people are taking the most advantage of the solutions. And it is known that industry is historically resistant to change, but still that change is now taking effect. The movement from edge only to the cloud. These are things that have been updated on many of our clients, and we are able to provide the support for them to go from this edge only to cloud. This would not be possible if things have remained the same.
And what we see many times is it's not either or, like edge or cloud, but it's both. It's like a hybrid infrastructure.
Hybrid solutions. Yeah.
So what we many times see on the side as well is that you have several networks, and they are all well. The further down you go, the more closed they are essentially, because the old machinery doesn't have any sort of like security or on it. And as MQTT so neatly helps you in securely bridging networks, essentially, you end up with like a Christmas tree structure on site often enough already. It can go along with like aggregation elements in between as well, but very often it's the security part of it that you just bridge from inside to out, and that's very neatly done. And then, of course, then where the real hybrid part comes into play, if you have something on the whatever you want to call it, global level, HQ level, or it is in the internet running in the cloud somewhere. Yeah. And there you again have the aggregation part, and what really helps then also if you have some sort of like a command center, in our case it's called a platform where you can neatly segregate projects essentially. There you have then the capabilities, or the thing what you often see in bigger companies, that who owns which data, and I'm not always
data ownership is one of the main issues.
Within the company, I also don't want to show everything. So you have on one end, particularly if you go into the cloud, of course, the aggregation part, and then with I don't want to pump everything up there because it's getting too expensive. But really, the ownership and the sovereignty or the data that you produce, particularly if it goes across business units, and we've seen that sometimes as well. If they're depending on the corporate structure, to be honest, they want to be sure. Okay, like in the business on the side, this data is mine, and I know what I'm sending out. They can ask for it, and I'm happy to provide it, but not by default. I'm just pumping out everything, and they know everything I'm doing, basically.
Yeah, and this is particularly relevant when we are discussing with multiple foundations standards for data ownership and transfer across brands to be able to implement brokerage of data.
But however, there it's then again very important that you have like a standardized way to do it. Otherwise, you completely lock everybody in on one broker, to be honest. And
it depends on how standardization is applied.
Yeah.
If the market can look past those differences and create the standards that allow for the interconnectivity of solutions, it is likely to benefit everyone, because the tools start to be more standardized and work can flow more collaboratively. Yeah.
And it's also quite interesting, like where other standards come in. I mean, there's some that apply to MQTT, like Sparkplug, for example, which helps in many cases. And looking forward to the next version, essentially. It's due to come out the next month, essentially. Quite curious to see that then happening. And on that end, it really helps on a kind of like protocol level. And on the other side, it's going to be interesting to see, as well as the brokers are always just a piece in the whole solution. So this is talking to many different other things there. What is going to be, and particularly there, I know that you've heard maybe of Sesame and their i3X, where I think they just announced that they're going to release the beta version of that now, which particularly should be helping with interconnecting all these different systems that come into play around it, whether it's come from contextualization or it's an MES later on or whatever, like basically everything that can connect across the whole stack, the whole chain essentially. And so it can also be like a different standard that everybody uses. That doesn't have to be within MQTT, and it's more broadly applied, but it solves the whole problem, so to say, or it helps in solving the whole problem.
Yeah. So the solution to the market is composed of many different elements. Yeah. It is the standards as the path to allow for interconnectivity. It is the extension of the protocol that is exemplified in all our platforms, all our different platforms. Each one of us has reached different conclusions to the solutions they develop. And other elements, I was just thinking of other elements and I just forgot things that we discussed, because I was reminding myself of one of the examples that you gave of the extensions, which were the auth element, the authorization. Yeah. This is not baked specifically into the specs, but many users implement them. Yes. We have provided a way to do role-based access control, exactly to provide what you were saying of different hierarchical levels of organization and access to data. Yeah. So, and this is something I'm curious about on your solution as well. You have a great open solution. Yeah. Do you think that we as technology developers have a responsibility to give the tools to people to better control their data, to better implement security? Because we often see on our open solutions as well that people publish sensitive information. Yeah. Should this be a target for best practices? And that's the other element that I was thinking about. It's standards, extensions, and best practices. Who should this come from? Should this be a responsibility of the...
I mean, to a certain extent, yes, but definitely not completely, that it's on our shoulders, so to say. So I would say, like, for example, if you provide an open solution or like open source it even there, you should have it in a way that you say, okay, it actually, for what it is, it's rock solid. I have faith in it. That's the boundaries it has.
So setting the boundaries clearly of what the product does and explaining the limits.
For example, that was one of the major shifts that we did with the open source Mosquito when we went to 2.0. So why was the major version there? Essentially, it was because on default we closed everything. We just said the broker here, but everything is closed. You have to open up whatever port you want to have and take it from there. Before that, it was just open plain, so you could more easily, more quickly use it. So with the 2.0, we got some feedback in the sense of like people just had the tag set to latest, got to 2.0, and nothing worked anymore because everything was automatically closed. Because we had also the feedback before that MQTT wasn't secure. Obviously, they meant Mosquito wasn't secure, but it wasn't the case. It was just everything was given to you for maximum usability, so to say. But that comes then with a caveat of, you obviously, if you want to run it in production or you have to take
over. The end goals. Always depends.
And so from that end, it really helped to do something there already. And then going further and beyond that, I mean, MQTT is an open protocol, so everybody should still be able to send everything over it. And particularly as we are most of the times not the ones hosting the solution. So we actually become, in that sense, like a service provider. but rather build the product and give it to the customer and help them, or the user, and help them in that. There is much responsibility on their end, and often enough we can also not see the data. Like basically most of them typically I also don't want to see what they're actually sending because it's sensitive data. So you can only give them like basically the product, make sure that in itself it works, comes with like a great default setting, and then you can only give them like best practices. We would do that like this. I imagine many times in your deployments and when customers on board, these are exactly the questions that come up. They have an idea. Most of the time, these ideas are already really good, and you can just say, yes, that's cool. Let's do it like this, perfectly fine. But they always want to be like reassured that you're doing it right or not.
Yeah, that's insightful, and that was one of the elements that came out of yesterday's discussion as well. Getting together all of our companies to develop a guide with best practices on how to better use the technologies, to allow for people to better adopt the technology, but also to be safer in the way they use and they create value of the solutions built on our common stacks. Yeah. So this is something that I would like to invite you as well to participate. The discussion is ongoing, so it's the best time to come on board. And then, of course, to take this to continue the discussion with the foundations and evolve the technology if necessary, or create the extensions it needs to.
And then, for example, yesterday in your chat with the others, came anything concrete out of it? In the sense of like, this is like one action item where you all concluded, well, that's really bothering us. That should be something that makes perfect sense to get into the standard.
Different companies, different concerns. Some of those that came up were exactly the standards. Yeah. The way that the standards have not picked up on ways to handle newer technologies. Other topics included exactly the best practices. How to best protect the users from putting information without security, displaying critical systems to the public without even realizing that they do so, because the knowledge of MQTT is not widespread. It is very specific to the industry, and even so, it is used globally by hobbyists, by people that want to act on the fields of IT. They want to automate their own, and frequently this leads to exposure of sensitive information. And finally, how to best develop the extensions to ensure that they are workable among everyone. When that is an interest, of course. And then finally, how to best evolve things with the new technologies. How does AI apply to MQTT, for example? Ourselves and the others have solutions that already integrate agents into the workflow to enrich the data, to transform it, to use it in multiple ways. How should this be done? What are the best bets? What is the value that can be best extracted?
And then particularly also how you communicate it to the customer, and especially what they actually do and what they don't do. Because many times it still comes then as like as agents do, it comes as a black box, sort of, and that's then on that end even more complicated sometimes. Also obviously super powerful, but must
and
be
it raises the critical issue of data governance above all. No doubt, and ownership. Once again, because by using external models, most people do not realize that they may be exposing their information anyway. Even if they secure it on the data layer, they may be exposing it to external parties unintentionally. So these were some of the concerns that arise.
All right.
This is an ongoing discussion.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it comes up all the time. So it's something that bothers us all or affects us all. And prospects, customers, users always have these questions.
Apart from these topics, any other concerns you see on the market currently? Any topics that you see recurringly?
I mean, the use cases in like in which no, not really.
Any
like a
other
little
kind
blank.
of concern. The use cases are also an interesting aspect because MQTT started on oil and gas, but right now it has become versatile enough with the solutions that exist to apply to multiple verticals.
I mean, we have come almost like a zoo. So we have basically like many different industries, and it's oddly
From
enough, like
manufacturing to smart cities, building management,
building
finance,
oil and gas,
banking. Exactly.
mining, drones, smart precision farming, everything around energy, and then also in building automation. I mean, like which kind of building it is actually. Like data centers have been lately really rising in a huge boom. So it's like many weird things sometimes as well. So particularly in the financial sector, I see sometimes also use cases because they come so from a different field. I mean, oil and gas and mining, they're often enough to still feel quite many ways the
It's
same.
more understandable why
And,
the finance sector seems more alien to this, but then you find that it fits just as well. The building blocks are there.
The building blocks and the concerns are often enough the same. And then I'd say there are like 5 to 7 typical architectures that you see. And you see them across many different industries. And they're sometimes surprised, okay, the architecture that makes most sense in your situation is the architecture that runs. I can tell you like 5 others that run the same thing. They have nothing to do what you're doing.
Works perfectly.
Yeah, that's funny where I'm sometimes asking myself whether it's because we see everything obviously very biased from the MQTT side. So basically, if you have a hammer, every problem becomes a nail. So kind of like this.
Curiously, Andreas used exactly the same expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you see common ground.
Yeah. There you go. And I will sometimes ask myself exactly the same thing there, but then oddly enough, it still
It's
works.
a very valid point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, so late. I just got it now.
So maybe I would end on that note. The notion that through collaboration, we can most likely enrich the field a lot, make it become something much more versatile for the customers, more able to help them extract value from the solutions they implement, regardless of how it is done.
I mean, in many ways, it's definitely not a new topic. Like in a broader like Industry 4.0 or Industrial Internet of Things. I mean, these terms are now quite old already, but still, if you're walking around here, you often enough see that everybody's sometimes they come from different levels. They're great implementations where it's really running in production, has been doing so for years, but also like a great portion of potential markets still finding themselves like, what do I need? What do I actually want to do? Seen some discussions haven't been going on for years already. So
it depends a lot also on the approach that is taken, because many of the customers are not even aware of what MQTT is. They're just looking for a solution. They're just looking for a way to acquire that data and move it and retrieve something from it. So we, as developers of this technology, have a lot to gain from evolving it and making it more usable, to increase its usability for the people, even if they do not know what is beneath the hood. And also because one day the protocol may change, new technologies may appear. This does not mean that any of us will go out of business. It means that we have to adapt, and we'll have to be able to continue delivering solutions to the customers. So
looking forward what you did now with the latest version. Have a peek at it.
Yeah. This was a way to answer different personas within the multiple verticals. We started by developing things in CLI, in command line interface. So as low level as possible to be able to answer engineers. Then we moved on to creating the language, which in turn helped the developers to create their own solutions. And then finally, we evolved to a graphical solution to allow for non-technical personas to be able to see their data, to talk with their data, to gain insights from what they were doing. Now, with the new technologies such as agentic and AI in general, we can reach this to an enrichment of data. We can allow both technical and non-technical people to extract the most value and to evolve their solutions. So it's really a matter of developing the things to allow them to reach the biggest number of people. It's all about value.
Yeah, exactly. Not just reach them, but then actually exactly providing a value so that they can do something with that.
Creating a solution that is abstract enough for anyone to use it, regardless of level. And the learning curve with this path just becomes very, very short. And that's the ideal. Because as you said, these are talks that have been going for long. And it seems to me that people always seem to be talking different languages, different jargons. And that does not help at all. Because even within the Industry 4.0 sector, people have a hard time defining what is Industry 4.0. So if they cannot even reach that consensus, it is hard to reach an end goal.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Like at least for the whole thing all together. In the end, is like many of the building blocks for the specific solutions are still the same. It's just a little bit like how differently do you apply them. And over the last years, at least what happened definitely was that, to be honest, there was great consensus on many. I mean, like 8 years ago, there were many more protocols, so to say. To be honest, like also that we encountered regularly.
They come and go, but MQTT seems to have stayed, to have gained its status.
So that's in like building the whole solution out, one of the core pieces, so to say, core communication pieces, and that's a good thing. So what I just wanted to say is, with that, basically there was already coming together on a couple of solutions, standards, protocols on that end. But still, in how do you apply it, what else is around it, is always a little bit specific. And obviously, luckily, there's not just one out there that does it all, because then there would be, they would control everything. We would basically have a monopoly.
Definitely. And it's a pleasure to see that beyond the competition, there is a lot of common ground to explore between the different solutions. And the dialogue between them is just fascinating to see what it brings in the future. Philip, it was a pleasure to meet
likewise.
You and to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.